Hey, Chef Ro here. Today I'm going to show you how to make a battered fried fish. I'll make it for a taco, but you could use this in larger formats for like fish and chips or anything that you like. But I'm going to show you not only how to make a batter, but also how to fry it properly so that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan and the batter actually stays on the fish. Okay, let me show you what to do. First things first, I have a plate of just plain flour. You'll see why I need this in a little bit, but there's nothing in it, it's just plain flour. Okay, then in this bowl, this is where I'm going to make my batter. I've got 1 cup of flour and 1 egg yolk. Then I'm going to use a carbonated beverage of your choice, but it does need to be carbonated and it does need to be cold. Okay, so I just have sparkling water, but any carbonated beverage will work. Okay, so I'm going to pop that yolk and mix it in a little bit. Now this is going to be slightly thinner than pancake batter, and this also works for tempura. For tempura you'll want it even thinner, but for fish batter we're going to want it slightly thinner than pancake batter, but not as thin as tempura batter. I know, that's really specific, isn't it? So basically I just keep adding a little bit of this water at a time until it turns into the right consistency. And when I get to that, I will show you exactly what to look for. Okay, here we have a good consistency. You can see runnier than pancake batter, right? But if you wanted to do tempura batter, you would still need to make it just a skosh thinner, okay? Now, the reason that I have this flour is because that is very wet. It's not going to want to stick to something else that's very wet, aka fish, okay? So, I have my fish here. Because I'm doing fish tacos, you can see I have my fish cut into very small pieces, okay? Just because I like to make them kind of nugget size, and then I get a slightly better ratio of fish to crunchy, in my opinion, in a taco. But if you were doing fish and chips or something, you would leave your cod or whatever fish you're using, this is cod, you would leave it in the piece size that you want. Okay, now I like to season my fish a bit because there is nothing worse than flavorless fried food. Then all you get is a mouthful of grease, okay? So I like to season my fish with a little bit of salt and pepper before I use it. I do have my oil over here in a pot heating up. You do need to make sure that your oil temperature is ideally between 350 and 375 degrees. That's kind of the perfect frying temperature. If you have a deep fryer, awesome, it'll keep the temperature for you. But if you don't, throw a thermometer in the oil and just keep an eye on it. It's a little harder because you have to kind of regulate it. You don't want it to be too cold. If your oil is too cold, then you'll end up with very, very greasy food. The food will sit in the oil too long and it'll absorb more of it. If the oil is too cold, it won't kind of seal off. So if you've had really greasy food, usually it means your oil is too cold. If your oil gets way too hot, the problem becomes that the outside batter will cook before the fish on the inside cooks. So some people stretch it to about 380, but if you're getting up to about 400 or so, that oil is way too hot, and by the time the fish is cooked, your batter is going to be burned, and that is not ideally what we're going to be looking for here. So 350 to 375 is the oil temperature we're looking for. Once your oil hits that temperature, let me show you what to do next. Once your oil is hot, we're going to bread this fish. So the first thing you're going to do is, just like any breading station, you're going to try and keep one wet hand and one dry hand, okay? So I'm going to take it and put it in the flour. All right, just give it a little shaky, 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 right, so that we get off any excess flour. Then drop it into the batter. That flour is going to help it stick. Okay, and we're just going to coat it nicely with our batter. In order to make sure that the fish does not sink to the bottom and stick to the bottom, we have to do what we call the swimming method. If you want to get into technical terms, this is the swimming method of frying. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of fish and you're going to give it a little swirl. Okay, so you're going to go 1, 2, 3, just with the little end of it, because that starts to set the batter and it'll make sure that the fish stays at the top. Now you can put more than one piece of fish in at a time, but you do want to make sure that you don't overload it and that you keep an eye on your thermometer to make sure that the temperature isn't dropping too much, because the more that you do put in, the faster the temperature will drop. I'll show you one more time. You go 1, 2, 3, just using the very little tip of it, and then down, and it'll float right to the top. Most people tell you that you're going to drain fried fish or fried food on a paper towel lined plate, and in my opinion, that makes it very soggy. I personally prefer a rack set over a sheet tray because it doesn't then sit against a soggy paper towel. Okay, the fish will darken a little bit after it comes out of the oil and sits for a few minutes. However, one thing to keep in mind is that without any kind of sugar in this, it's never going to get that really dark brown color. Beer battered fish gets that dark color from the sugar that's inherently in beer. So if you want to kind of cheat and not use an alcohol, like if you just want to use sparkling water, you can put a pinch of sugar in the batter, and that will darken the color of the batter as well. So once it is completely cooked, this is completely cooked here, you're going to take it out and set it down. But you must season it immediately. The salt will only stick to the oil, so if you don't season it immediately, the salt's just going to fall right off, okay? And there is nothing worse than unseasoned food. Once you have all your fish cooked, then you can start building your tacos if that's what you're going to do. I like to make little street tacos because then I don't feel guilty for eating 5. I just like to maybe throw 1, maybe 2 little pieces in here, maybe throw a little bit of slaw on top like this. Maybe a little bit of crema over the top like this. Okay, if I'm feeling super fancy even, maybe a little bit of minced cilantro, and then I have a beautiful fish taco. Hopefully this has shown you that frying fish really isn't that hard. It doesn't even require very many ingredients, not a ton of specialized equipment or anything. Some things make it easier, but not super difficult. Some people like it even crispier, and so they want more of like that fried calamari texture to it. If that's the case, then you can replace up to half the flour with cornstarch. It'll give it a crispier texture, but for me, I like flour on my fish because I want some weight to that batter, right? And it's part of the beauty of it. Hopefully now you can start frying your own fish at home as well.